Hello again. Okay, so in the last video I was telling you about how when you need to work on a certain area of a horse, you really need to have photos of a horse bending its leg and the muscles flexing in exactly that position of the bent leg. And so I just wanted to take a second here and use my girl again and kind of show you what I was talking about. So the last time I think I was pointing to this area and pointing to this muscle group which kind of flexes and changes, but even in this position on the other opposite side, when the leg is stretched back like this, you would think, oh, well, there's less flexing, but oh, there's so much that can go on, and I found a bunch of photos to pull up and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So we'll start with this area here. I'm just going to point out to you on the mare that I'm using. Hopefully you can see what I'm going to be highlighting here is pretty much, again, assigning that point within here, and that's deep within the muscle tissue. You can't really feel that bony point on most horses unless they're extremely skinny, but that is up here. This joint right here. I wrote on my screen. And it's this joint up here on a real horse. You can see it superimposed, but it's deep within. So let's just take a second and look at some photos here so you can see how there's a ribbon of muscle coming down over that, but you really can't see it. It almost looks dented in there. This is a saddlebred. He by far it has the least amount of muscle in the haunches of these horses that I'm showing, and you know, there's still, you know, a bump right out here of a lot of muscle in that area. Here we have three different horses. Well, that's not showing so well. But I compare three different horses in three different positions, and you can sort of see how their stifle joint area. Wow, why is it focusing that way? I'm not doing that. Anyways, we'll move on. Anyways, those three right there have very different stifle areas. But yeah, you really can't see their hip joint there either. This horse here is a quarter horse with a large amount of muscle mass. There's so much muscle mass that it's up here, it's very high, and then it's shaded right here below it. And comparing that to this, where that horse has shifted its weight just a teeny bit to the other side, and all of a sudden this bulges out tremendously with a lot more muscle. So it's sort of interesting here. The horse is putting a little bit more weight equally on both legs in the behind. And you can see huge muscle support here, huge muscle support here. Muscles up above are probably locked and loaded versus here he's leaning to the outside. And now these muscle groups here have completely combined and they're kind of holding the leg more rigid. Anyhow, very similar poses, very different muscling going on. So it's really just not a good idea to say, oh, the horse is moving in such a way, and so these muscles are always bent. There's always a line here. There's always a groove here. That's not quite the same for different breeds, and even just slightly different weight distribution. Like here, I find this really interesting. This horse has a very large bulge right here, which you just don't see accentuated in the same place there, with the leg just a teeny bit farther back, and slightly different distribution. This horse is more under himself. This horse is launching off more. So, what does that mean for the sculpture? Well, again, you try and assign your different points, and I'm trying to decide where the measurement starts. So I know my femur is right here, and I'm using my box concept to decide where that comes through, where those points of bone are on the back. Okay, see those points of bone right there on this horse here? I was talking about those before, so I want to decide where my front end of my hip is here, the hip wings, the back end of the hip, and where in the middle that the femur comes out of. Try not to be too technical on you. And then this whole joint, the stifle joint, again with the patella, as I was saying, the patella moves a whole bunch of different ways. And then it comes down here, and let's just look at what can go on here with this bone. Okay, so as this leg is straightened out, this and this gets a little bit closer to each other. When this leg is bent more, that and that get farther apart, and you've got your stifle moving around. Now, on a horse like this, the thank you horses inside out, when they draw those, obviously they're not able to move the stifle, so as the horse moves, you're not going to see that stifle moving. And I tried the same thing did an experiment, and this would be a great thing to show people, or try it with your own horses, where you carefully mark the stifle joint, and then just have the horse stand still and shift the horse's weight back and forth a little bit while keeping all four legs in exactly the same spot, and you'll see the stifle move as the horse's stay apparatus locks in and out. You can see a huge amount of movement with the stifle. It kind of pops over. And oh, can we really see this here? I compared 3 different horses by using a rough Photoshop overlay of actual bones to kind of show how different even the same bend in the stifle joint can be on 3 different horses. And I used their actual, topographical area to hopefully place things like the patella in the right point, but you have 3 very different looking stifle joints. Anyways, the bottom line is, as you're understanding what's going on, in order to measure a bone, you need to understand where the points are on that bone. So I'm not measuring, roughly out here, this point out here, but I'm measuring specifically from here to the middle of here. Points that don't change. So on this girl, I need to understand where that top of that bone is and the bottom of that bone. And if you're trying to really figure out a measurement, you really need to know specifically what bone you're measuring. So if I'm measuring the femur and I accidentally measure where the patella is out here instead of the femur, that's going to lead to heartache, because usually the 2 sides are very different in that. So you need to understand where your femur ends versus where the patella is coming down here and changing that. So again, let's just see if I can show you on these guys. Okay, you can sort of see the patella here is that versus on this horse. The patella is up here a little higher. So comparing a little higher versus on this horse, whose leg is flexed a little bit more. Can't really quite tell, but I'm pretty sure his patella is right around here. And this horse, whose leg is straightened out quite a bit, the patella has come up. And that's the biggie, when the patella comes up like that, but doesn't actually lock into place. Because then, well, that's not true. Some horses can have a patella lock, and stifle lock is a terrible issue. Anyways, but, yeah, okay, you can see it here on this one. The stifle can come, the patella can come all the way up as high as here. And you can see it sort of here, as the legs extends out backwards, that will sort of stay. It's all part of a very complicated stay apparatus. I'm not using good examples. You really need to see an animation. So, forgive me, but as I was saying, pretty much understanding that you're measuring this part from here to here and not all the way up here. Okay? From here to here you want to measure, not up here. Because when you go to measure the opposite leg on the other side, you're going to have some heartache. You have completely different lengths. So let's see if I can compare here. So if you're trying to measure from here to here, and then you go over here, see how different that is? I mean, you would just be making a completely inaccurate length for that opposite leg. So hopefully that makes more sense. And I think that's it for now. That's plenty. Thank you very much. www.artbymorgan.com. Have a great day.